I believe we have a presentation tonight. Dr. Bowley, if you could please introduce the science department.
Good evening. This evening will provide us with an overview of our science department. The next generation science standards are aligned around 3 strands: disciplinary core ideas, science and engineering practices, and cross-cutting concepts. Science instruction in our classrooms revolves around all 3 strands for a well-balanced science experience. Our goal is to allow our students to have fun with science. We all want our students to be critical thinkers and problem solvers. The way we do this is to give them problems to solve and time to work through them, even at the earliest of levels. In our classrooms, we put the doing of science in the hands of the students. Here to tell us more about science education in our East Brunswick Public Schools are the leaders of our science department, Supervisor Mr. Ryan Higgins and Department Chairperson Ms. Jessica D. Benedetti, both in their positions for approximately 6 months now.
Thank you, Dr. Bowley. Congratulations, Mrs. Becker, Mrs. Lax.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons, for your distinguished service as Board President. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present the science program tonight, as well as I'd like to thank you for your visionary leadership and the continuous professional development opportunities that you have afforded myself, Jess, and our staff. I was fortunate to come into this district in 2017, and your commitment to professional development is one of the features that really sets this district apart. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.
Good evening. I also would like to take the opportunity to personally thank the board. I started as a teacher here 9 years ago, and the PD opportunities and tons and tons of opportunities that I've been given while I was here is what led me to the position that I have today, so thank you. So I'm going to start with the department vision. The science department seeks to provide an educational experience that sparks curiosity of students through inquiry. By fostering inquiry and curiosity, we look to develop students that are scientifically literate, successful problem solvers that can think critically about the world around them. Through this process, we hope to promote an interest in STEM careers for students.
Thank you. So ultimately, we hear from so many people, not usually East Brunswick students, but so many people, I'm not a science person. And part of our goal is that all of our students, they come out prepared to pursue a STEM career, but if they choose another route, that they still have a penchant for science and really still have that thirst to figure out new things and solve problems and just figure out how things work, and not, we don't want to hear somebody define themselves as, I'm not a science person. So it kind of boils into our goal and vision. We were asked to describe what would be our model classroom that will support our vision for science instruction, and some of those key features certainly revolve around collaboration. So when we look at how do we foster collaboration, our model classroom, the physical structure, would have seating that supports, it's flexible seating, allows students to come together for group task work, have the large working spaces to promote moving around. When you have students working in a lab setting, they're collaborating, there's going to be lots of movement between stations. As far as from a technology standpoint, we're using technology to assist in data analysis on the student end. They're analyzing data. We're bringing in more and more tools and systems that promote that, as well as the teachers are also accruing data on student performance. We're bringing in, as we update our programs and our textbooks, we're bringing in adaptive technology through Pearson and McGraw-Hill that gives the students the ability to take assessments. They get real-time feedback. It'll adapt to them. It'll provide them resources off the bat that identify their weaknesses, point them to either pages in the book or videos that will help support their deficiencies in knowledge. So we'd like to continue building on that and building the adaptive digital assessments. And we also like to use the technology to facilitate collaboration. Not only student to student, but also help our students reach out to either other districts or experts in the field. So that ultimately is our vision for the model classroom, the structure, and the technology. These are the NJSLA, the Next Generation Science Standards, and when they came out in 2014, they were a big deal. There was a big philosophical shift. They emphasized the science practices as much as the content. Content listed under the disciplinary core ideas in the middle is kind of a vector to support the science and engineering practices, the 8 of them that are listed on the left under the blue column, as well as the cross-cutting concepts in science, which are listed in the green. To be honest, it's a shift in standards that was probably catching up to some of the more successful teaching practices in place before they were launched. You will hear, whenever you talk about standards, you hear 3-dimensional. And what that means, it refers to a task that incorporates a DCI, an SEP, and a cross-cutting concept to bundle them together so that one task is addressing multiple standards at one time. As you can imagine, that really adds complexity to design curriculum to ensure that we're addressing all of the standards throughout a unit, we're bundling them, that we're not overlapping too many standards because it was bundled into one, or we're not leaving standards out. So the time that we've been provided for the summer professional development to bring the staff together, learn more about bundling, and take the time to really organize the curriculum, review it, and work on those bundles has been really important for our success. So during the math presentation, you saw that they have the math practices, which remain the same through grade levels, but they progress in rigor and difficulty. Similar concept behind the SEP progression. We have the 8 SEPs. They are the same through all grade levels, but they progress in rigor. So we presented here for you an example of data analysis, in the kindergarten through 2nd grade band. Data analysis is really just kind of recording the data they see, and that recording the data can come through a picture, a drawing, a diagram of what they see. Progresses to a little bit more quantitative measurements as you get to the 3rd through 5th grade band. 6th through 8th, they're getting into data analysis, doing basic statistical techniques, and then in the high school realm, they're really doing advanced statistical techniques, error analysis. You can see in the 2 pictures, apologize, they're kind of small, but in the picture under the 3 to 5 grade band, that's of a 4th grade class in the motion design unit. You can see that they're a car that they designed, they're measuring the motion of that vehicle, and then you look at a smart cart that we just brought in last year into the high school. Similar measurements, right? Measurement of a object moving forward, but the analysis is taking place in the high school. Because we have the opportunity to use those smart cars is far more in depth. One of the reasons why we sought them out was so that we can actually engage in the analysis and not spend so much time in the collection. And the equipment we had prior to that really required detailed setup, so now they have a lot more time to really engage in the analysis component of that. These are our instructional features that you would see pretty consistently in our science program, K through 12. Phenomena-based, CER, which stands for Claims, Evidence, Reasoning, and Modeling. So phenomena-based, what we're looking for in that is that we present students with a phenomena, something that generates a question from them. And it doesn't have to be super awe-inspiring. The wonderful thing about students, especially the younger they are, they don't take for granted many of the phenomena that we see. Last night my 5-year-old daughter got extremely excited when there were rainbows on her wall and just had to know, why are there rainbows on my wall? And just kept asking questions and asking questions. And in simple phenomena like that, even how light switches work, that kids wonder about. And if you present it to them the proper way, they're going to ask questions. And it's those questions that guide the instruction. And so the ultimate goal is to present them this with phenomena that generates questions, and then we facilitate tasks that allow them to acquire evidence to explain that phenomena. So we're not just, here's the phenomena, ask a question, you try to figure out. It's facilitating, it's systematic, figuring out what do we do that's going to lead them through the experiences so that they can figure out and understand this phenomenon. That kind of leads into the CER, which is a claim, evidence, reasoning. So when they see that phenomena, they're making a claim. Then they're going to engage in experiments, activities, and tasks that builds evidence, and at the end of that unit, they can take that evidence, figure out whether it supports their claim. If not, revise that claim. As they progress through the CER, through the grade levels, you really see the reasoning evolve. That's really the challenge in CER. The claim they can get, the evidence, they're pretty adept at figuring out. The reasoning is what takes time, and you really see that progress as you move through the grade levels. Modeling is, when we think of modeling, we all think of a 3D structure, right? You're probably thinking of the volcano that you build. But modeling is, our primary modeling that we're using in science is a diagram that explains that phenomenon. How do the continents move around? And as a student draws a model, if they've been given the correct experiences, you're going to see arrows coming in every direction showing magma coming up from the earth and tectonic pressure and all the variables that are involved. They will explain in their model how they come together and make that continent move. So this is the overview for the elementary program. We use programs, a combination of programs from FOS, Full Option Science Systems. Should I forget that one? Full Option Science Systems is developed by Delta Education, and Science Technology Systems, STC, developed by the Smithsonian Education Center. These kits, you know it when you walk into an elementary science classroom because the students are absolutely fully engaged. You know that because you hear questions. They're in their groups, they're working on one of the activities within the kits, and they're just firing questions to each other. The teacher's still facilitating, but they're asking great questions about what's happening, and they're engaging in that phenomena-based learning. Wonderful thing about having these kits available for the teacher, it really ensures a consistent program through all the elementary schools, and then it allows the teachers in future grade levels to really draw on those experiences. It's great as a teacher to be able to say, well, you remember in 3rd grade when you talked about soil, rocks, and landform, and you did this activity? Being able to draw on that and know that the students have had that experience is invaluable as you move through the grade levels. Programs are designed so that students will receive content in the physical life and earth sciences as well as engineering. In addition to the programs, we have a Star Lab in 4th grade, which is a planetarium, a little portable planetarium, blows up, it's amazing. You can fit 30 people inside there, and they're able to explore the constellations in the solar system, lunar phases. And in 5th grade, we do a rocketry unit as well, which is, aside from the content they learn in engineering and physics, it's great for community relations. The parents really come out for that, and you go to one of those launchings, and it's great to see everyone just come together and have a good time with science. This is just an overall layout of the units. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail for them, but showing each unit, each program that's in place for each grade level. So kindergarten, we have the trees, sunshine, and shadows, material in motion. And the material in motion, which you actually see in that picture right there, so you can see the excitement of the students for that materials in motion unit. That was just recently added, and that was added as a result of moving to a full-day kindergarten program. The feedback on that program, on the materials in motion, has been phenomenal. Students, every time I've gone into a lesson where they're doing that, the students are engaged, they're excited, and the teachers are really excited, and they give really positive feedback on that. In 1st grade, we have new plants, organisms, and weather. Again, they're getting opportunities, they're seeing different life forms, different organisms, they're really engaging in the comparison. If we looked at that science and engineering practice, they're looking at comparison, they're recording. At this stage, they start recording data on what they see with growth. And with the weather, they're looking at the sun, air, and water, able to engage in some physical standards as well as far as mixing water and looking at how temperature changes occur. In 2nd grade, we have the balance in motion, solids and liquids, and butterflies. Again, these are all hands-on activities. So with the balance in motion, they're engaging in engineering, they're designing spinners, they're looking at the phenomena as why does this spin? So again, something we might take for granted, but in 2nd grade, that's a question that they really do ponder, and it does engage them and really gets them trying to figure out what's going on here. How do I design the best spinner? How do I position it in order to get it to spin the best? Then they have the butterflies, which great experience for the students, right? To be able to observe a butterfly. In many schools, they have the opportunity to get in the tent with them, and they're flying around. They're able to see the changes. So again, promoting a cross-cutting concept in SEP of observing those changes as the butterfly goes from its caterpillar cocoon to actual butterfly. 3rd grade, we have magnetism, electricity, structures of life, and soil, rocks, and landforms. Nice thing about the soil, rocks, and landforms unit is that it ties in nicely to what they're doing in the social studies curriculum as far as their communities and geology unit that they do. The magnetism and electricity, that's the picture you see there. It's impressive what they're able to do in 3rd grade as far as putting together a circuit. And the actual wiring isn't all that much different than what we would do in a house, but they're able to figure it out. They get the lights on, they're integrating switches. It's the discussion buzz that takes place while they're doing that is incredible. And it's impressive that they are able to do what they do with the circuits. 4th grade, we bring in astronomy, motion design, animal studies. So the astronomy, that's where we bring in the star lab. That moves from, we have 2 of those star labs, and they rotate throughout the elementary schools. For the motion design, they're building the car. That was the picture we saw on the first slide. And they're going to use that car that they designed to explore a lot of the physical concepts, friction, air resistance. Now they're using it to make measurements and to really hone their data analysis. And in the animal studies, they're looking again at different organisms from the frogs, fiddler crabs, millipedes, looking at their habitats that they need, looking at the needs that they have to have in order to stay alive. 5th grade, we get into micro world, so this gives them the opportunity to use a microscope. Also touches on some physical standards as far as lenses, how the lenses work, how they magnify it. They get into ecosystems, so they're able to, the concept of a system is very important in science. So it's really, they're able to see the impact of variables if they add to an ecosystem, particularly pollution, acids, salts, and fertilizers. They go into levers and pulleys, so they do live investigations as far as how does a machine make work easier? Why does a book feel heavier when I hold it out here as compared to close to my body? And then they do the rocketry, which, as I explained, great community engagement and helping to bring the community out for science. So we go to Hammersholt for the 6th grade curriculum. It's just a fun year, right? I mean, we started off with a trip to Dowlenbach's, and that really sets the tone for the year. When I talked before about being able to relate to past experiences in the curriculum, it's great that the students have that experience so early in the year, and they're able to draw on that, and when they talk about soil, when they talk about succession, and then they end that with the trip to Fairview Lakes. Again, they have other topics in there as far as light, color, magnetism, but those trips in there really emphasize some critical components of that curriculum. 7th grade, they go into science practices, plate tectonics, earthquakes, volcanoes, cells, genetics. It's a lot of content in 7th grade. One of the things that they really emphasize in 7th grade, and you can sort of see it in that picture there, is modeling. So 6th grade, they make real progress in the CER. 7th grade, they do a lot of work, a lot of development with perfecting their models.
Going back to the idea of all the questioning and students asking the questions, one of the best experiences I had from my shift this year from being a teacher to being the department chair is when you're in the classroom, you're working so hard to get the students to ask those questions, but there's 500 million things going on. So you're hearing some of the questions and some of the things going on, but this year being able to sit and just listen to the things that our students are asking, it's unbelievable when I sit in a physics classroom and I'm watching them figure out a problem that was like presented 2 seconds ago, and now they just work their way through it without ever being told how because they asked the right questions. So it's a unique experience from going to that, please ask these questions, to, oh my gosh, they're asking these questions. So at Churchill is when we start our honors science. It's 8th grade academic or 8th grade honors. They're still taking multiple different disciplines of science. They take chemistry, geology, astronomy, and meteorology. And then when they go to 9th grade in high school, that's when we go down to like focusing on one content area at a time. So all of the 9th grade students take biology. The bottom picture on the left is called gel electrophoresis. The biology team got a grant last year from the EBHS to be able to do these gel electrophoresis in an academic class, not just an honors class, where previously it was only an experience for the honors student. So that was really exciting last year. At the high school, we offer 3 levels of chemistry and physics, and we have 4 different AP advanced placement courses that we offer. And we have 3 full-year electives and 4 semester electives and 2 quarterly electives. And next year, we'll also have a new elective, semester elective in human biology, because we only offered anatomy and physiology as an honors course, and offering human biology as a semester electives allow all students to take it, even if they're not an honors level student. We offer many science-related clubs. Science Olympiad is grades 6 to 12, and Science League is 9 to 12, and then we have multiple different clubs at the high school. I thought it was really important to highlight a little bit about the science faculty, because they're really involved in our school community. There are 14 science teachers who are club advisors at either Churchill or the high school, and 6 science teachers that are athletic coaches at Churchill or the high school. We have 2 high school science teachers with doctoral degrees. 8 high school science teachers teach the dual enrollment classes for Middlesex County College so that our students can get the credit there. This summer, we had one of our teachers published in the Science Teacher, which is part of the National Science Teacher Leadership Publications. And recently, one of our teachers at Churchill was chosen to be a member of Achieve Science Peer Review Panel, which is a group that basically decides if lessons meet next generation science standards or not. So they're very involved in the community, not just in science. A little bit about student achievement. Last year, we had a total of 242 science AP exams taken, and on 96% of those exams, students demonstrated that they're qualified to receive college credit for their course by getting a score of 3 or higher. So I think that's a nice thing to show of our students and our teachers at 96%, showing that they took this course and they learned what they need to do like it was a college course. This summer, we had 3 students that participated in the New Jersey Governor's School of Engineering. This month, we're actually going to nominate 3 more students for this summer and 3 students for the New Jersey Governor's School in Science. We had multiple seniors achieve summer internships in engineering. And we had a high school student who was a 2018 USA Biology Olympiad National finalist. And even though she was just a finalist, her peers decided and voted that she should be the keynote speaker at their closing ceremonies when the whole thing was over. So while she was just a finalist, her peers found her as a leader amongst them. We had a high school student attend the Simmons Summer Research Program. And currently, we have 434 seniors taking 1 or more science course. So that means that 60% of our seniors are opting to take a science course that is not mandatory for graduation. Our goals for this year involve developing the 3-dimensional assessments. So like we said before, 3-dimensional is when we're including all 3 components of the next generation science standards in these assessments. So the goal is to not simply know if you know the science facts. Can you actually do the science to show that you know the science facts? And in order to do this, we need to continue to align curriculum with the next generation science standards. There's always tweaks to things that are happening in these standards. And make sure that we're connecting the curriculum to real world phenomena. The Department of Education also believes in 3D assessment because that's how they test our students. When they take the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment for Science in grades 5, 8, and 11, each item on the exam is aligned to one of each different components. And the state decided they are not reporting out on all 3. They report out on the SEPs and the disciplinary core ideas, because the cross-cutting concepts, there's like 100 that apply to each one, so it makes it difficult for reporting. Last year, they did the field test, and this year it's going to be the first operational test to obtain baseline data. And the time was extended on it in elementary school. They added 15 minutes to each unit because too many students didn't finish. So while the state is doing this, it's important for us to be able to have 3D assessment in our classrooms as well. So how do we do this? Instead of just giving students a multiple choice test where, what is this, A, B, C, D? An example of a question is like this one here has 3 different pieces of evidence. And the students have to read the evidence, read a student's claim, and then decide, do they agree with this student? Do I not agree with this student? What other information do I need to make a better decision? And at the bottom, they're actually designing a solution to something. So even if they know the disciplinary core ideas that go with this question, if they don't understand their science and engineering practices, they're not going to be able to give an answer that gives complete knowledge. And even though I love science and I love evolution, which this question's about, in the end, we want to make sure that our students can analyze and interpret data, not just regurgitate facts on natural selection. So that's what I have.
All right. Again, thank you for the opportunity to present. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Lee?
Thank you very much for the presentation. From the picture you showed, I realize there are more boys in high school and Churchill and more girls in the elementary school. So my question is, in our science club or an AP class, do we have equal amount of girls in that class with the boys, or we have simply have, in higher grade, we have more boys?
Not having the data in front of me, but that is something I've looked at recently. Our gender distribution in the sciences is fairly equal. We do see a little bit of discretion with the AP physics. But for the most part, the participation in the sciences, including the higher level electives, is roughly equal.
Of the students who applied to do the New Jersey Governor's School of Engineering and in the sciences, it was an even number of boys and girls. And then when I ran the data to figure out who the nominees were, it was 3 boys and 3 girls. The data just fell that way.
Okay, thank you. Because I don't want our girls left behind. When I was in graduate school, our chemistry lab, no girls, all boys working there. So please pay attention to girls. If they show less interest for the science class, then you guys have to do something to promote, to protect their interest in science. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And Mr. Scanlon himself has done, supervisor of the practical arts, has done a lot of work to encourage females in the STEM program thus far. He and I attended last month. We went to a women's in physics professional development to kind of look for strategies to ensure that we get engagement from the females in science as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you so much for that incredibly comprehensive presentation of our science department. Never fails to amaze me what our children are expected to learn and how well our staff and administrators make sure they do learn that. I actually had a question for you about Fairview. I was just curious. So we know that when we look back on classes that have graduated, and we ask what was one of your most outstanding memory of your time in the district. Time and time again, we hear Fairview trip. So I'm just curious. I mean, there is something to be said for not arguing with success, but how has the Fairview trip evolved over the years in terms of what new components have we introduced, and do you constantly give thoughts to adding to the Fairview experience?
This will be my first Fairview trip with East Brunswick. I did have the opportunity to go as a student when I was back in 7th grade. So this year is certainly going to be looking at how the system works. I think in general, I know just looking over past kind of minutes that there's always been a Fairview debrief after every Fairview trip, and that's the part where we come together for reflection and think about how we'd want the trip to evolve.
When I started, we didn't do GPS orienteering at Fairview, and we started doing it at Dowlenbach's first. And then Fairview had a program too. So once we started doing it, and we mentioned it to them, then they said, "Oh, well, we can actually incorporate that on the trip as well." So that was added, at least since I've gone on the trip.
Great. We look forward to a lot of good experiences for our kids like that. Thank the both of you so much. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for your support.
Thanks, Jessica.